Hi there, my name is Sky and I'd love to be your new favorite art teacher. This week we are snowed in. Sounds like a good opportunity to get creative together. Thanks for being here. Let's jump into today's tutorial. Hello again, beautiful artists, and welcome back to another episode of Paint Along with Sky. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Sky and I post beginning level acrylic painting tutorials here on YouTube right now, the second and fourth Saturdays of the month. Thank you so much for being here. Today we're going to do a really fun snowy cabin scene. Your girl loves a snowy cabin. This one makes me really happy and feels super cozy. I'm going to take you through it every step of the way. The three brushes that I have for today's class are the three that I use in most of my classes. Your brushes don't need to be the exact same size and shape, but they should be the same general size and shape, and also made for a water media. This first one is a square wash brush. This is a size 16. It's about 3/4 of an inch. An inch works fine as well. And then I have two pointed brushes. I am using a size 8 and a size 4. I'll refer to them as sort of a medium-sized pointed brush and then a small pointed brush or a detail brush. Going to get all of my brushes in my water cup off the side of the screen. The colors that I have to start with for the background step, just to get us started, I have some white and black, a bit of phthalo green, a bit of ultramarine blue, some burnt sienna brown, just a pinch, we'll need more later, and then a little bit of a cadmium yellow, which is like a true primary yellow as well. To see the full materials list of everything that you'll need to paint along, check the description box below. It'll show you the colors for today's tutorial, but it will also have a link to my materials page on my website, which is skypratt.com, SKYEPRATT.com. You can click on the materials page and it'll break it down for you, everything that you need to paint along. Okay, jumping right on in, I'm going to grab my medium-sized brush and I'm going to do something that I do in a lot of my tutorials, which is the first line that I like to make on a canvas, which is sometimes the scariest. It's just a simple horizon line. So the reason that I do this is you gotta kind of jump into the painting mentally, right? So we're going to sort of ground ourselves with the ground. We'll see what part is going to be the lovely snowbank and where our cabin will sit, and then what's going to be our background forest. So I'm just gonna grab a little bit of gray, just a light gray. We wanna use really light colors for everything that will be snow, of course. And I'm just going to sort of wiggle my way across. I'm gonna come up a little bit on one side because I'm going to have my sort of larger snowbank on this side with my little peekaboo cabin right there. And then I'm going to grab my large brush and start filling in the background. So this one's really easy. So it's always easy when we do winter paintings like this because there's a lot of snow. So it's gonna involve a lot of white, and that was too much gray. I'll do a little bit lighter gray. And I'm going to just add some nice snow cloud vibes here, some light gray with my large brush, and I'm just going to grab a light gray and throw it all in the top section here with this sort of quick texture. Back and forth, moving the brush around a lot. If things are shaking, apologies. Trying some new setups. Thanks for bearing with me. It's a one-woman operation. No film crews, just you, me. Okay, and I'm bringing that all the way down to where my snowbank will be. Well, as you can see, that's very subtle. And we might want to add, just for fun, a little tiny pinch of blue. Why not? Maybe a little bit of blue peeking through in a few places. And if you're one of those people that doesn't like snow, you'll appreciate, oh, here comes the blue sky again. I like both. I love a snowstorm. I love how calm it makes everything. I'm very spoiled though, I work from home, so I don't have to dig my car out. So I like being snowed in. Let me know in the comment section how you feel about snow. Are you a winter person, or would you prefer things to be warmer again? Okay, and then we're going to have the same colors in the bottom section, only they'll be going a different direction. So I'm going to scoop some white onto my brush and come right up over that first gray line that I did. White on white, a little hard to see. And even though the canvas is white, you do want to take white paint into it. It will look like a spot is missing. But you can water it down a lot and it will make it go further if you'd like to be sparing with your white, since we are using a lot of it. So smooth brush strokes in the direction of our little snowbank, and then I'll take a little gray on my brush too, and I'm going to go right along the top again, and then also a few places in the middle. So we're just kind of creating a little bit of layers, a little bit of hills, and finding a nice line of separation. As you can see, what I just did there is I flipped the brush. So remember, you can use your brush like this, skinny line, or like that for a fatter line. You can kind of play back and forth until you get some nice, cute little snowbanks. Perfect, okay. And then I'm going to retire my big brush and work on my forest. I don't think I need to let the white dry since I didn't use that much. If you ever need to step away, if things are blending weirdly and you need to step away and let things dry, just go take a little coffee break and come back. Acrylic is all about layering, so we have to be patient. Although for this YouTube format, I try to get as much out as I can, you know, in each step, but it's perfectly fine to take your time and let things dry if you need to. But I'm gonna jump right into my forest. So I'm going to do like 3 or 4 different tones of green. Now the blue-green that we have here, this phthalo green, one of my favorite colors, so beautiful. It is a green that has blue in it. It's this gorgeous kind of emerald color that when you add a bit of white to, turns to this gorgeous sort of aqua. But if you want more of a true green, you gotta counteract the blue, and that means adding a little bit of yellow. And then I'm also going to tone it down a little bit because I don't want it to be too bright, because it's going to be kind of my background trees. So I'm going to take my phthalo green, add a little bit of yellow, and some black and white until I get a color that I like. Sort of a light medium sage green. Doesn't have to be exact. And I'm going to come and add some pine trees. And there's a few ways to do this. So there's the way that I'm doing, which is kind of just like flicking your brush. There's also, you can add sort of some little tapping motions too. You can play around and see which way you'd like to do your tree. And what I want to do is create a sort of triangular shape, of course. Trying sort of like a tap flick fusion. You're really just kind of messing things up on purpose, if you will. Bring the shape out a bit. And we are going to add some snow. I think we need to do that in a second step. So let's just work on our trees for now. That's a pretty big and close one. I'm going to do one that's a little bit lighter in color. As things recede into the background, they are lighter in color. So your background trees, going to be lighter, but also your older trees will be a little bit bigger and those might be a little bit darker. So it's all just, you know, general guidelines. But of course you'll want the lighter colored trees, if they're in the background, you want them to be behind your front trees. And I'll break up the shape a little bit once we get to the snow. Let me just try, just for fun, we're just playing around today. I like to do the quick little flicks method too, just to show you what that looks like. But I feel like this new sort of tapping that I've been trying makes them a little bit more realistic. So it depends on what you're going for. There's nothing wrong with a little touch of whimsy. Love that word. So that looks pretty cute too, but I sort of like this tapping a little better. Especially up top, but it can be sort of labor intensive to tap, tap, tap the whole tree. So you can add a couple little wrist flicks in there too. And you can see a little bit of color variation really makes a big difference too. In terms of getting it a little bit more towards realism. Very cute. I had a student, shout out to you, who told me that they make a drinking game with these tutorials, and whenever I say something is very cute, that's when they need to take a drink, which I guess I do a lot. You guys get to have a little peek of my inner monologue pep talks. I do think they're cute. I don't think I'm like, you know, Da Vinci over here, but you know, I like a little happy forest. What can I say? Okay. I was at it again, looking cute. I will keep saying it so that everyone can play along. Okay. Adding in our forest. And I've got mostly this sort of gorgeous sage green so far. But let me add a few darker ones. Ooh, that was probably too much black. There we go. A nice sort of emerald green, so a little bit more towards blue. Sometimes I like to just start with a line and then sort of build my tree triangle on top of the line. And of course, some trees are skinnier, some trees more robust. And part of the beauty of our forest is the differences in the trees. So I add a few of each for the sake of variety. Mixing it up with the brush strokes. Going all crazy. Okay, very nice. Let's see. I'm gonna do one more. I think I'm gonna add just a tiny little pinch of brown to get another sort of neutrally green. It's kind of amazing how many different tones of green you can come up with just these few colors. I'll do a little bit lighter though, since we're doing the background. All right. Okay, I'm going to grab my small brush and I'm going to add a couple smaller trees in the background too. It's because we want a nice full forest, right? But these are going to be a little skinnier because they're taller up in the background. And they can kind of just be poking out of the greenery, but I want to make sure that it's clear which one's behind which. I think I'm actually going to put this one in front of this light green one in the background, but behind the front tree. Great. Okay, and that looks pretty full. Tap in a few more with this other brush for a nice full forest. Let's do, okay, we'll do one here too. In my mind, this is sort of like the pathway to the house, maybe through a small forest. Okay, that looks really good as a background section. I think we are at the point now where we're going to want to let this full layer dry so that we can come back and add our next layer, which will be, of course, our cabin, some gorgeous snow, more snow, snowflakes, snow in our cabin, and then a couple focal front trees too, to really get us placed in this gorgeous, cozy forest. So let's take a step away and we'll come back in a few minutes once this layer has dried and carry on. All right, I'll see everyone in a few. Okay, welcome back, artists. I have a completely dry background and fresh colors on a new piece of palette paper. I have some black and white, a bit of my phthalo green again, some warm brown, aka burnt sienna. I have a little bit of my cobalt blue, a little bit of cadmium red, and a little bit of cadmium yellow. I'm going to jump right back on into things. So before we do another whole layer on everything with our gorgeous snow and some highlights and shadows, I want to trace out where our cabin is going to go. And I'm going to do that with a light gray. You could use a pencil for these kind of things, or you can also use just a wet brush, or we had the suggestion the other day of using chalk. That works too. I like to just keep a paintbrush in my hand the whole time. Sometimes I'll use a paint pen. I recently tried that in a past video. But I'm going to start with a sort of a gingerbread house shape. For the front part of my cabin. We're just tracing out the shape with this step. So this is where you're going to want to sort of adjust things. And then I'm going to sort of come back to a sloped point. These shapes will be a little more evident once we start filling things in. But I'm going to do a line back here, and I'm not really going to worry about this line, although that would sort of connect there. Because I'm going to cover that with my snowbank here in just a minute. That's a nice, cute little dainty barn, and I'm pretty happy with the size of it. So now that I've decided where to put it, I'm going to fill it in with my base colors. But first, I'm going to do a door. I'm going to do the door in a sort of a burnt red. So I mixed together a quick orange, which is of course red and yellow together, and I added a little bit of my burnt sienna. And I'm going to put a little orange door, and we're just gonna work with the base colors right now. And it's okay if you need multiple coats. So this first pass, you might not get it to be completely opaque. That's okay. And then I'm going to take a lighter, different brown. This will be my sort of main cabin color. All right, I am just gonna go ahead and fill this whole section in. We'll work kind of just from the background to the foreground. Cover this up with snow later. And I'm putting my brush strokes in the direction that the wood planks would go. So in this case, I'm going backwards like that. But in the front part, let's make it a little lighter. Going to go up and down. Brush stroke direction is one of those things that you don't always think about as a beginner artist, but you really gotta fill in things deliberately, because even the cast shadows of the brush strokes will sort of add to that 3D effect. It makes everything look nice and consistent when you kind of tidy up the direction of your brush strokes. And let me grab a little bit of white. I'm gonna add some highlights in now, just to sort of even exaggerate the up and down brush strokes. You can see that sort of already looking a little bit like a wood cabin. Okay, and then let me take a light, very light brown, and do sort of some of these structural lines. And that one too, but then our roof will, of course, be covered with snow. So I'm going to rinse my brush out completely. And I'll come in just with white to start. And put some snow on my roof. I don't want to see any peekaboo green. Of course, we'd have a nice solid roof. So use plenty of paint. But again, don't worry if you need a second coat. You can always add one. Okay, there, our little cabin is structurally built. We just have some details to add later, but let's go ahead and leave it alone for now. And I'm going to work back on the trees again. I think I'll come in with that same small brush for this next part. And I'm realizing that these green trees are a little too green. So I think I'm going to sort of tone things down a little bit with my shadow step. So the way that I'm going to do that, so this is actually kind of a little trick. If you mix a little bit of black in with your purple or your yellow, you'll get a really nice green. You don't get a dark yellow. Sort of an olive color. There we go. And olive is nice, but it's probably going to be too dark. So let me take in a little bit of white. And I have a little bit of like a duller green now. So what I just did is I created a tone of green. Tone is when you add both white and black or gray. Okay, and I'm going to come in here and sort of tap some of this additional color into my bright green trees. Your bright green trees, you might like that color. But it's nice to have different shades of green. The more shades, the better. Nature is an exceptionally patient artist. So many tones of green once you really start looking. Okay, and then I'm going to add a little bit of a lighter version of that same color. And just kind of mixing things up now. And we are going to have snow on these trees too. So just keep that in mind. Nice. Let me do something similar to this main tree. Bringing in just a little bit more of an olive tone. That's what I love about acrylics, is the layering. And I'm taking in almost like an off-white for these trees in the background. Pretty light color. I like how that sort of softens things. Okay, I need a little bit of shadow some places. Just tapping with the top of my brush. You don't want to go too hard though, mainly because you don't want to hurt your brushes. Nice, okay. I like the shadow, especially towards the base of the tree. Okay, let's do some snow now. I might need to get more clean white at one point. There's no worries if I do. Okay, so we're going to be a little bit more strategic with the white. And what I'm going to do is sort of tap it in here, right along the sort of ledges and across the tree a little bit. So it's almost like stripes, like you're decorating your tree. Tapping in the snow, and of course on the top of the tree. Lots of paint on my brush, not very much blending happening. This one is more of a layer. You can see these shapes become sort of triangular. They sort of remind me of clouds. And maybe a couple sort of random ones. And then of course towards the base, let's bring the snow up a little further even. And we are going to sort of cover the barn a little bit. While I'm at it, I feel that this gray is a little too dark. So I'm just going to tone that down a little bit as I work my way over. Making things a little bit stripy. Adding that snow on to every portion of your trees. Very cute snowy forest. I wish I were in a snowy forest right now. Doesn't have to be a Christmas painting, to be cozy. I know mentally sometimes people get a little sad after the holidays, but things can still be cozy and I guess Christmassy. There's more to enjoy with winter than just Christmas. Okay, nice, consistent, sort of tapped in white, tapped in. And a little bit of snowbank coming right up to the forest. Okay, while I have white in my hand, just want to hit this roof one more time. Trying to start building up the opacity there. Maybe also tone down the gray on that side. We want it very subtle. Okay, looking good. I need a little bit more snow over in this forest section. Nice and random. Okay. And then also while I'm at it, let me go ahead and add a second coat of color also. In the different portions of my cabin too. And I'm lightening that color a little bit. Okay, and then I'll need a second coat of my red-orange on my door really quick. It all depends on how you use the paint as to whether or not you'll need second coats. I tend to need 2 coats. Okay, that looks really cute. Now I'm going to do something rather bold. We're gonna pull a Bob Ross and add some happy trees. We have some happy trees, but I'm going to add some additional happy trees so that they may live in a mixed forest together. So let's take our brown. I'm going to add some black as well. I want to come up with a nice dark brown color. And I'm going to add different type of tree, just with some straight-ish, slightly wiggly lines. I'm going to have it coming right out of the little bank there. And I'll have a few that come off the side. If you'd want to use your smaller brush for that step, that's fine too. We are sort of like framing our little house. And I'm going to add a skinnier one. I say skinnier as I sort of push down too hard briefly, so I guess not that skinny. That's all right. Okay, and then I'm gonna do 2. Let me do a slightly different shade. Actually, I'm going to make this one a little bit lighter since it's further in the background, following the rules that I established earlier. And then I'll do a darker version right in front. To add the big part with the medium-sized brush, but then I am going to come in with my smaller brush. And add a few little smaller branches. And some of the branches can sort of be broken off and just floating. And again, we're thinking like a frame, sort of. Okay, and let's add some highlight right on top while our paint is still wet. I'm definitely gonna need some more clean white, but I just want to finish my forest elements before we start getting detail oriented. I like to do a bit of wet on wet blending. Okay, that looks good for sort of setup. We will fine tune things. And sort of bury things with snow here in just a minute. Yeah, let me take a little bit of a shadow color. This back tree got a little too thick. And that will sort of break things up a bit. Adding a bit of shadow in this drying phase too is also nice. We're getting that wet on wet blending. Okay, we'll add some snow onto these branches as well, but I'm going to take another quick minute to let everything dry, and we will come back with a final touch step to finish everything up. Okay, I'll see everyone in another couple minutes. Okay, welcome back, artists. I have just a few colors on my palette paper here for my final touches. I have a fair amount of white because we're going to add a little bit more snow, some burnt sienna brown, a little bit of my cobalt blue, and a little bit of black. Let's jump back in and finish things up. Okay, I'm going to grab my medium-sized brush, and something I want to do first is I want to bring my snow up to my trees. Just make sure that they're sort of enveloped in the snow rather than their current shape, which was just sort of the end of that brush stroke, right? So bury my little treesies in the snow. And I also want to sort of bury my little house more, my cabin. To get that snowed in feel. Very cute, little tucked away, and a little bit built up on the other side too. And that looks very cozy. Okay, and now I'm going to grab a little bit of blue and black. So I'm gonna make a very slightly blue gray. So mostly white and black, mostly gray still. As you can see, just the tiniest little touch of blue. And I'm going to bring this as a sort of snow shadow color right up near the banks. And then here in our front little bank areas too. So a few swipes there, and then let me actually mix up a tiny bit more, because I'm also going to do a quick shadow on the snow of the trees. And if that was a little bit too much color, kind of tone it down a little bit with white again. Just want a little bit of a casted shadow there. Go all the way off the page, and maybe some sort of like footsteps there towards the cabin would be cute. not too deep. Okay, that looks pretty good. Smooth brush strokes make a difference. Okay, that looks pretty good. And then let me go into my barn a little bit more. I'm gonna do a few things actually. Gonna be kind of jumping around here. Remember, you can always pause the video as needed. This one is a little bit more involved than some of my others. So I'm gonna take a dark brown. I'm gonna go into the cabin with it, but I'm also gonna go into my trees with it. So I have brown and black together on my tiny brush. I'm going to come into some of my branches that were a little bit see-through and add this second coat of color. Okay. Looks good. And I'm going to do a couple sort of up and down skinny lines with that darkest color. Just a few little swipes makes a big difference. Okay, still have my tiny brush. Let me take some white and bring in some snow onto these trees too. So I'm just gonna tap it into where the snow would collect in these trees. So in those little deep V parts, sort of triangular shapes. And this is a good opportunity to sort of break up this big chunky part that I got over here. A little bit sort of coming down. Okay, we're looking pretty snowy. If you need to, you might need to do a second coat on some white areas. This painting has so much white. I know I've said that, but wow. Bit of buildup snow on the forest floor. We're jumping around. Okay, I think I'm ready to go in my cabin finally. Sorry about that. Got distracted. Doesn't really matter the order that you add your different elements on each layer. Of course, you want to like let layers dry in between, but you know, there's no rule that says you can't jump around a bit. So if you ever see something that needs finessing, so let me take some of my dark brown and I'm going to sort of outline that side, but I added that, it kind of looks like a pretty nice shadow. So let's do the darkest color, this one, first on the left side. And that will sort of be where our shadow is coming from. Excuse me. And I'll outline my door really quick too, but then let me take a lighter brown and sort of break that up a bit. And then sort of, I wanted like a medium brown. So the idea here is that we have a medium brown, dark brown, and a light brown. So you can see just a little bit of variation in the colors. Can really make a difference. Okay, I'm going to do a little bit of snow on my door because we're very snowed in this scenario. Our cabin is very snowy, and I forgot to put some red, but let me just do a few swipes of brown here for my door so that it's nice and solid. A little bit of shadow towards the bottom. And I actually got a little wonky with my door, so let me straighten her out. Perfect. Okay, and it's gonna be sort of a matter of back and forth So you'll put your details on your cabin, but then you want to sort of bury it up in snow again. Okay, and then this is an important part, which is the chimney. I'm going to use a dark brown for the chimney too. Little details make a big difference. I'm gonna take my chimney right from the sort of top, of course, of my house. I say house, or it could be a cabin too. I love a tiny house personally, so this would be enough space for me. Let me know in the comments section if you could live in a one-room cabin. I'm one person, so could you do it with your current setup, or could you live in a cabin by yourself? I'm curious to know. I'm gonna put a handle, door handle on my door. Little details, very cute. Okay, that's looking good. And then I like to add a little, what I call a touch of whimsy with some acrylic hue. So of course this isn't very realistic. We're going for sort of like the storybook quality now. But I'm going to mix up a light gray, like a smoky gray. And from the roof, from my chimney, I'm going to do some swirls. And I'd like to start with one direction and then come up the other direction. And then you could continue the pattern. I'm gonna kind of gently fade the brush strokes away. And I have that with gray. I'm going to also come in with white. And this is gonna be white on white, but it should be a little bit lighter than your background. Bring that all the way up to the top. Okay, I think that looks pretty cute. I would love to know what you thought of today's painting in the comments section below. I'd love to hear from you. I also have a Facebook group called the Art Club that is designed for my students to share their work with me and with the other students. So if you'd like to share a picture of your gorgeous masterpieces from today, make sure to follow the link in the description box below and head over there and join us and share. Shout out to all my Art Club members. I hope you are all having a cozy winter, and I hope you're enjoying the snow as best as you can. And that is all the instruction that I have for us this week. So thanks for painting along, and until next time, stay creative.